Welcome to the Real and Raw podcast show. My name's James Forrester.
I'm Russell Quirt.
Welcome to the Real and Raw show. I won't hold back. Hello, welcome to the Real and Raw podcast show. This is episode 4. My name's James Forrester, the host. And as you know now, I will be literally interviewing influential people and businessmen while there's a knock on the door. And we're not playing any tricks. They're not about to walk through. He is sat here now. I have Ben Dyer. How are you?
Hi, not too bad.
Good?
Very hot day outside, but so apart from that, we're okay.
It is absolutely scorching outside, so we are melting in here. But Ben is a massive award winner, the TILG group, I think I'm pronouncing that right, which is the Inspirational Learning Group. Ben's going to tell us a little bit more about this, and I'm going to hit him, as you know, with a few hard questions. So Ben, before I ask you all about the business, there is one key thing. Obviously, it's a lot to do with education.
Yeah.
What do you think about the teachers going on strike, though? Or trying to go on strike?
So straight in there with the question.
Straight in with a great question.
And, and this isn't going to be me sitting on the fence, but what I will say is, teachers do a good job. And this isn't a normal strike where, perhaps the rail workers or some of the other public sector figures, the teachers, one of the main gripes is around funding the schools. And they are there day to day. They are on the coal face. So as frustrating as, I can see both sides of the arguments, as frustrating as it can be at times for parents and everybody else, that I think people go into teaching because they care about the kids. And, from my point of view, they probably got as much right as anybody to strike. So, but if they genuinely believe that they're underfunded in terms of schools and pay, then it says they're right.
They get a lot of holidays, though.
Yes, but there's also a lot of caveats to that, and I think it's probably a bit of a lazy viewpoint because of the fact that there is marking and planning and everything else to do. And look, those are well tuned and have been there a number of years. Perhaps I've got the lessons for the next year. They can take a bigger break, but certainly the new teachers, the last 10 years teachers, it's a lot of hard work even in the summer, and the extra stuff that they go above and beyond summer schools. We see that. We see people doing stuff in their own time at Easter. And often that's without extra pay. So I think you look at it on the face of it, they get a lot of holidays, but on the flip side, there's a lot of stuff that teachers do that goes unnoticed.
Does it benefit you as a business if they go on strike?
I suppose yes and no. Schools will be closed. Schools may want us to go into support. We just see ourselves really as an extension to the teaching community in that respect, and we want what's best for the students, and we'll support if needed. So that means supporting when the strike days, we would. Yeah. Okay, good. I can't go into it too much because my wife's a head teacher, so we're chalk and cheese on this. A lot of arguments over dinner.
A lot of arguments over dinner. My personal belief is to go, I do think schools are underfunded and they need more. I do think education needs reformed in a lot of different ways because, I build student accommodation, so we want loads of people going to university.
Of course.
But naturally, schools are focused on that, whereas a lot of great kids coming through the system who don't need to go to university and can get life skills elsewhere, which, especially now within England, we've got a dying, tradespeople is dying. We haven't got people to learn all these skills and carry it through. So I'm really interested to hear. So you've obviously got a few famous faces that have been helping you out. So Lord Sugar, I think now.
Yeah, so he was our ambassador in the first year when we set it up, where we're two lads from Stoke, realised that we couldn't be the face of the programme, with all due respect. We were two young lads had an idea to tackle the skills agenda whilst we were at university. And one of the ideas when we sat and brainstormed, like a lot of owner-founders will have the same story, but we're in the coffee shop, straight in, what do we want? An ambassador. Yeah. Somebody that could front the business. Who would know which business guy do we know that would, and we did a list. And in the end, Lord Sugar was top of the shop. But we actually got closer to Peter Jones at first and Theo Pafitis, who subsequently got involved. And then we got a phone call from a contact of ours saying that Lord Sugar would do it. Yeah. So we went for it.
Otherwise you'll have to be told you're fired.
Yeah, well, we'll maybe come on to that. But funny, well, if we might as well talk while we're here. So funny story of that is he did the first year. There was we had to pay some expenses and stuff like that, and a donation to his charity, fine. And as with most people, and the second year he really wanted to do it, but we really wanted Theo. And we spoke to the marketing director again at Ryman, because we wanted to go more into the real life business challenge, which we'll come on to. And so we ended up, Ryman gave us a couple of weeks, said we'll make a decision. And Lord Sugar's agent was on the phone. Do you want booking for next year? And does he want, really wants to do the event? And Sophia got on the phone and said, no, actually, we'll do it. Ryman will get on board and join the journey. Yeah. So we always say that really we're the guys that fired Lord Sugar.
Yeah. Great claim. Well, hopefully, if he does watch this, we'll have to tag him in and see if he makes a comment on that.
Yeah, probably. No, it's just as a disclaimer, that's just a bit of jest.
But look, it's an interesting story. As everyone knows, I'll get my little fact sheet here. This episode, I've even been provided with a nice little graphic, so we'll put that up for you. But tell me all about the Inspirational Learning Group, because it's an interesting concept and what you've done, but obviously the viewers and the people listening in want to hear from the horse's mouth. So give me an overall snapshot of exactly what it is you do.
Yeah, so we set it up to tackle the skills agenda, the skills gap. Whilst we were studying at uni, 2 cousins, both from Stoke-on-Trent, low deprived areas, and one day at university, young people haven't got the skills for the world of work. It was plastered over the TVs. We were there finishing our degrees. I think that's a little bit unfair. And we already had a bit of an idea about doing this. And we'd done a bit of a pre-pilot, if you like, with the university and helped them out on a business program. And we were saying why it was unfair. And then we said, well, if we were going to launch, what would we do? So we said, well, we'd want something nationwide that all schools could have access to. We'd like it to be social mobility.
Is it across the UK or just England and Wales?
Well, across England and Wales in the main. Scotland, we usually have our finals at the end of the year. Okay. So they finish a bit earlier. But the idea was that we would go all over the country and we would have no regional competitions. Like a lot of competitions in our space have regionals. We wanted to go national. And we wanted every single school to be able to send their winning team to our national finals. So there was, and what we also insisted on was mixed ability groups. Okay. So that we'd have a full year group. No matter if you were academically really strong or academically really weak, our competition is a level playing field. Okay. If you can develop an idea, stand on that stage and present it with your peers, you've got a chance.
That's good.
And we've had kids,
it's open to everyone.
Yeah, open to everybody. And we don't have a separate competition for SEN schools. Mm-hmm. It's the same one. Yeah. And it's off, when we said we're going to put it on, it was going to be called the National Enterprise Challenge. We've changed names slightly now to the Careers Challenge, but the same idea. And when we put it on, we'd committed to this finals in London. We'd never been London before, other than watch Stoke play. Okay. So literally...
Which is not often.
And it's certainly not Wembley at the time. But we'd never been London before. And we committed to this big finals, committed to Lord Sugar. Yeah. And the amount of people that said, this will never work, you'll never pull this off. But there we were in July, the night before at the venue, thinking, wow, we've got 700 people coming to Troxy tomorrow to this theatre. We'd never run a big event before. We were feeding everybody. It was, if you could go back, I'd love to be able to go back now and film what we actually achieved it was only the night before, for example, we forgot we hadn't even done an event PowerPoint because we were that busy. Yeah. But we were also that skint. We worked out it was cheaper to get a parking ticket, than to pay the parking charges in the morning. Yeah. So that's the kind of budget that we were on.
Still like that today, then.
Yeah, possibly. So, but we were, we were up to in the lobby at the hotel. We ordered pizzas for the staff, friends, family galore. And poor old Ian Sterling we had as our host in the first one, who's the guy who does the voiceover for Love Island. But he was a comedian at the time doing CBBC as well. And he must have walked into this absolute sea of carnage. And we've become well versed in our events, but now back then it was our first ever one. And I don't even know who briefed him. I think he just winged the whole thing for us. But we put it on, and
some of them are the best ones.
Yeah, and it was only at that event. So we'd done all the schools. So bear in mind, we were doing all the selling. It's all normal startup. It's a community centre, it's the office, doing all the selling to schools. Put the event on, and then we put that finals on. And it was only then a teacher came up to me and said, "What's next year?" I said, "This has been brilliant. This has been the best thing we've been." I said, "Oh, don't worry, it'll be bigger and better." Not a clue how and why, how we were going to do it. But that was when we went, obviously the second year, we took the feedback on, and that was when really it was born, because we became a real life business challenge. Yeah. So it was almost not a replacement, but like schools could then use it for work experience, get a concept by Ryman and really use the videos to kind of work on that brief.
Okay. And is it open to any age group, or is it mainly high schools? Or
high schools is the main group. We have had iterations of it. Years 7 to 10.
Okay, yeah.
The idea being year 11 and busy with their exams.
Yeah, but it's also to give them that belief that they've sort of had that business experience at a very young age, an idea that potentially could make it into the real world.
Yeah, 100%. And there's research that came out after us. So we were right at the front of this around employer encounters. So if young people get exposed to employers at an early age, they're a lot less likely to become neat, more chance of them earning the potential's been higher. So we were at the forefront, before all this came out from the government, we were doing this.
Yeah.
So, we were right at the forefront of that. And I'm really proud of the fact that we've worked with over 500,000 kids. If somebody said that to me when we started, you never believed that me and Mike, cousins, who always grew up together from Stoke, from council estate, would have that big of impact.
Yeah, it's definitely it's really interesting, as you say, because obviously I'm a big believer that every child should never be told no. They should always have an opportunity, regardless of background, to be able to try and make it in the world. And this is something you've done. But what made you get into it originally, though? Because obviously from the timeline here, which hopefully you can see on the screen now, for those who are watching it, it was a coffee shop idea.
Yeah.
Like a lot of great ideas, coffee, beers, back of a fag packet, out comes the idea. But what made you get into this in the first place? Like the idea must have been bubbling there, or what drove Ben at the beginning?
Well, me and Michael, as I said before, we were from council estates. We were loving parents and stuff, but from tough areas. Stoke-on-Trent was like a lot of areas, but really hardly hit with the industry and the pottery industry, the mines, everything else. And it was always a kind of the forgotten area. Like if you switch the news on, you never hear Stoke had been hit. It was always that. So growing up, it was quite tough, in the early 90s, and seeing that the end of all of that. And it was just that desire and belief to want more out of life.
Yeah.
And we just both carried it. It was just a weird torch in us that said, well, but then also, if we've got that belief, there must be other kids knocking around. There must be other young people in different areas of the country. So what then actually, if you could become that enabler, what if you could give the people the belief, the proper belief, and give them an opportunity to reach for the stars and give them opportunity? And it just drove us, and we had the idea. And like I said, we did a bit of a pilot for the uni. They were looking for a business challenge. And we just put our hands up and said, we'll do this. Yeah. And we'll take it into schools for you. And we had a little go at it and thought, there is something here. This would work. And then when we did that, we got the bug for it and said, let's get this ambassador. Got the ambassador, and we were all systems go.
Which first one, Lord Sugar in 2013.
Yeah.
Then you went into Theo, 2014. And then fast forward it slightly, just a few years ago, you got Mr. Moonpig himself.
Yeah, Nick Jenkins. So Theo, we never intended to have Theo for 6 years or 7 years, whatever it was. But he's just a great guy. When somebody really gets what you do, and he's as passionate, he was giving us ideas every year. We do a launch event, and he'd say, "Have you thought about this?" And the only reason really it came to an end was he got to the stage where people thought it was his challenge, because it was the Ryman National Enterprise Challenge as a title sponsorship for all them years.
And was he still on Dragon's Den at the time?
Yeah,
as well?
he came off, then went back a bit. Yeah. So it was a bit of an on and off. But he was great with the kids. He's really engaging, and the kids knew who he was. So for we got to the stage
because they're on the TV. These people, kids do buy into that.
They love it, and because he was so he'd really get into it. And we did the Wembley Stadium thing, and I think then it was obviously a COVID after that. But I think I half expected that relationship to end, not because anybody had done anything wrong, but we'd taken the challenge from a concept, and our dream, if you complete the business plan, if you like, was could we take the finals to Wembley Stadium, and we did. So we used all the Great Hall. Yeah, it was a great way. We used the Great Hall. We used all the hospitality. The kids came in, and we actually it was like an event, proper event where they had to have a photo at Wembley. That was the first bit they did in the stand and all that kind of stuff. And there was a lot of people there that day, and we had Perry and Jordan from Diversity hosted it. Yeah. And it was like you sat back and remember sitting in the Hilton.
It's great for the kids though as well, because obviously, as you said, it's all about them.
And that's it. So you see the faces. He was brilliant. And it was like business, everything, we almost completed it. So it kind of was no surprise, but then obviously COVID hit and everything changed anyway. But
I was going to get on to that, because if you look at the journey, obviously coming all the way through here from, having it at the Troxy Theatre, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah.
Right through to Trenton Gardens, then into Alton Towers, but the kids love that one.
Right. Pick up on that. You'd think that, and that should have been the best ever chance we had for PR. We had opportunities for, but it was the year of the Smiler incident.
Okay.
So it ended up being 3-4 weeks after the Smiler incident.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of people not attend that one because people were ringing us up saying, "Oh, it's not safe." And I was like, "Well, we're not going into the park. You just have to."
It's just a location.
It's a marquee in the park.
Yeah.
But instead of that, should have been. I remember I was in the office and somebody said, "Switch the TV on." I said, "No, I'm busy." I said, "No, switch the TV on." And obviously, the awful incident had happened on our doorsteps. We were based in Stoke, and I was like, "Wow." And their challenges, external challenges sometimes in business.
Because it's out of your control, because you'd have booked that in ages ago.
And they'd set the challenge, set the program. So from their point of view, well, it was horrible. The whole thing was horrible. But obviously there's a lot of people involved in that then were involved in booking the challenge. Yeah. So it's probably one of the, if you say what was one of your worst days in business, it was that day. And obviously not compared to the people that obviously horrible things that happened to them. But from our point of view, you wouldn't think we'd have been affected, but actually it affected us as well.
So then you build it back, you go to Doncaster Racecourse.
Yeah.
Obviously moved your offices, I believe, into Telford.
Yes.
So moved away from Stoke.
So that was because, we then searched for investment into the company to grow it forward.
Yeah.
So we always recognised that the challenge would almost be the kind of the trust vehicle to do the other stuff that we wanted to do. And we've always wanted to work with employers and become, I'd say an agency, but it's not really. The trusted provider of educational programs. Yeah. So if anybody, a big company wants an educational program, we can write it, deliver it, evaluate it, do everything. And that was kind of the start of that journey. So it was the challenge. We'll always say the challenge will always be massive. It'll be our flagship and what we put our heart and soul into. But that was kind of the journey of becoming a bit of a contract business as well.
Yep. Okay. Great. And then obviously International Centre, and then into Wembley in 2019.
Yeah.
And then lockdown.
Yeah.
Pretty much where that changed probably everything, because it's probably the worst time for education, with everything being closed. I'm sure you're probably thinking, hang on a minute, that's our business going.
Yeah.
Because we can't do challenges, we can't meet, we can't do events. But then you launched the virtual side of the business. So tell us about how you got really into that and launched out of all places in China.
Yeah, so
which was even more of a lockdown.
Well, yeah, so the China thing just happened just before, but it was important for them. But really, that was one of the reasons we knew it was going to be bad over here and give us a little bit of a head start. Yeah. One of the key contacts there was based in Wuhan.
Right. Okay.
So he was telling us that obviously their intention to work. But I remember a conversation maybe 5 weeks before we got locked down, so just in January, and he pretty much just said, "You will get locked down." Yeah. So when it was, and then you press about them getting locked down, we were like, "Will we?" I don't think, and I think if everybody thinks back, even a week before we got locked down, people wouldn't.
I think if you went the night before, everyone
didn't think it was actually going to happen. So we entered discussions, and look, my sister luckily had a business, and they could actually get some. They had their own software, and I just said, look, how can we put a decent learning platform together in a short amount of time? I think it was 6 weeks. We managed to turn it around, TILG virtual. But again, from our point of view, because we're a service-led company, all of our delivery days were in that year, and finance for that year, and everything else that you cash flowed for the whole year. So we knew that we needed, if all them deliveries went into the year after, we'd have been no better than an airline industry going, I'm knackered here. Yeah. So we couldn't do that. So we were saying, well, if we offer a service which they'll use now, and we can get kids online in the time when they need it the most, working in a team, collaborating, thinking about the soft skills.
Even just mental health for the kids.
Mental health.
People do forget about it.
Of course.
All of a sudden they're being used to with all their friends, day in, day out, taken away. Now they're just locked in a bedroom, basically. Yeah.
And we piloted it on straight away. Week one, we did some free ones on social media. But really, we created the TILG virtual offering for all of our schools and our partners to say, look, we still think there's an agenda here. We need to help the kids, help the schools. And within 6 weeks, I think it was, I remember it was Stockport Academy. They were online. Kids, it was coming up. We had a chat function where they could speak to our facilitators. And I was like, this is happening. We've overnight turned into an ed tech company, especially, effectively. Yeah. And it won us a lot of friends. And I think only a handful of schools requested that we deliver in the next year. The rest took advantage of the online programming. And we even put an online finals on, and we set up a recording studio in our offices safely, did the finals. And I think because other people had to stop, it just won us loads of admirers, and these have got a bit of resilience, these guys have, and they're the trusted source.
And showing what's needed.
Yeah.
As well. Any regrets? Could have done anything different?
During lockdown, probably no. Without being big-headed. I mean, the regret. I suppose the regret is we had two of the best challenges we've ever had that year. A Grenade, Alan Barrett at Grenade. They set a challenge to come up with the next healthy eating bar kit with kids. We're going to make it. They did make it, but all of it was done over Zoom. So the only regret, I suppose, is if they'd have been in the factory and they'd have been able to do the cool stuff, the coverage and the stuff that we'd had off there. And I don't think that kind of fulfilled its potential. But credit to everybody who was involved that year, and the fact that Alan, still did all that, delivered on it, and because it would have been challenging for him also. Every business had the challenges. So, yeah, we're lucky that when people get involved in what we do, the companies
they're invested.
They're in them as well. They tend to stay with us for a number of years.
So it's like a cross for those who are thinking, right, we're sort of getting it, and we're wondering. It's a bit like a cross between Dragon's Den and The Apprentice.
Yeah, and meets the X Factor. So when they come to the finals, we have people. Britain's Got Talent. And you've got to remember, it's just all about the kids.
Yeah.
So can we inspire those kids to want to achieve more?
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that. And if we can, brilliant. And to be honest, every day that we do, it's a bit like meet a Channel 4 documentary. You get to that point in the day where you go, they're not going to make it. They're not going to pitch on stage, but then they always do.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the magic formula is even, but it just works.
Yeah.
And we're doing, we're in 4 or 5 schools every day. Massive delivery team of people that go around the country for us, and and just everybody buys into it. And luckily, we've got people that love what we do, and they really do love it.
Okay, fantastic. So what makes you different though? Because it all sounds wonderful, and amazing, but like a lot of people might go, well, we've got similar, we've heard of something different. So what makes TILG completely different?
I think our US first and foremost that we can work with most students. So there, we challenge ourselves. But in education, I think it's the basics. Turning up every day. And I know this sounds really silly, but if you're saying you're going to deliver a day on the 12th of June, you go on the 12th of June.
Yeah.
And I've always said, forgetting the football analogies in terms of one of our facilitators said to us once, he'd worked in schools for a number of years. And at the time, he used Man United, probably not now, but we were the Man United of deliveries because we did pre-delivery calls. We actually know exactly what the delivery space we're going into. Yeah. So them details that our team get, we have to we're stringent on turning up an hour before the delivery. Because we want the school we won't be in the reception before the teacher gets there.
Yeah.
So that any worries they had, any niggles, they might not come today, what we'll do for the year group.
Yeah.
The minute they turn into work, we're there. Yeah. Hi, you're okay? We're ready to set up. We take all the materials in. So if anything, it's the basics, and it's a poor answer in a way, because people think, oh, it must be something more than that. But no, not really. Doing the basics right in education is usually the best way. And it does make us stand out, because unbelievably, the amount of last minute days we do because somebody's let them down is unreal.
Okay, fantastic. It's all been nicey so far.
This
is not real and raw for no reason.
It's the calm before the storm. You're smiling, you're engaging.
I'm doing what the kids will do on stage with you. That's why, and I'll lead you on. But look, we talked about it earlier. I went into it, about teacher strikes and things like this. But there's a key thing. What are your thoughts on the educational system at the moment? And do you think it needs an overhaul? Because it is going wrong somewhere.
Yeah, I think if you look at... So
no holding back now.
No, I couldn't sit here today and say that I don't believe passionately about skills. Skills is a big problem. And for me, one of the things... And I've got an autistic son who's 12, and he goes to mainstream school, and it's extremely difficult for him. Why is it difficult? Not because of the school. They're trying their best. They're trying to put things in place, but there's too much going on. The year groups are too big. The class sizes are too big. The way of teaching hasn't changed, and of course there'll be traditionalists and that feel that perhaps change isn't needed. But if you look at, I'm involved in an organisation called the Fed, which is like a foundation for future development of education, and what they say is right. There's long-term plans for most things, but there's not one for if you type it in for education. There's not a long-term plan. There's been, 30, 40 ministers of education in
a like the housing market, effectively. You don't get anything sorted unless someone sticks at the job.
So short amount of time. So I don't think you can pinpoint anybody. You can't say it's the Conservatives' fault because it happens under Labour. You can't say it's Labour's fault. I think the culmination of the fact that there's just got to be this long-term strategy and viewpoint to take us into this new world and not make people scared of that and not make students scared of that. And I think if we can do that and we can go, almost go away from that the whiteboard at the front or the blackboard as it used to be, and kids facing the front and being taught at. And have I got all the answers? No, I don't think nobody has. But as a collective, the best people need to be on that room and saying, if we want to be world class and remain world class, because what you've got to remember is we're still the gold standard elsewhere in the world. Yeah, people look at us.
Exactly.
But that doesn't mean we should rest on our laurels and accept mediocrity. And that's not the teachers, the weight issue, the funding,
and you've got to change with the times, because from when we'd have gone to school, it's completely different now to how the kids go to school today. But not a lot's changed education-wise.
And the way things are taught, and there's reasons for that. But the thing for me now is that I think we've got an opportunity with this next wave of technology and AI and everything else to rip up the rule book and say, what if what if we want this?
Yeah.
And if we want to be a leader of that, you need to start now in the education. Pointless starting in 15 or 10 years' time when things really come to fruition, could be too late. So, my ask of any government would be to really prioritise education now and not see it as that, annoying union that needs wants a little bit more money or, infrastructure projects. We've got to really look at it and say, what do we think our kids of the future are going to look like? What do we need them to be doing?
Because the world is going to get a difficult place.
Of course it is, yeah.
As it goes forward. And I don't mean that just financial as we're filming this and what it's like with the cost of living at the moment. But in general, kids now, where you could have got away with it, years back, you could have just done the minimum, got through, and you're probably doing really well for yourself at the moment by learning that skill or just applying yourself. But now it's very different. Kids coming out of high school now, they've either got to get their A-levels to get into university, which the bar seems to be rising all the time for what the universities want, because like a lot of people don't know, domestic students don't make universities money, and unfortunately, they're a money-making business. They want overseas students because that's where the money comes from.
There is some changes, whether rightly or wrongly. So I think they're putting rules in place now. The government are to try and stop that. I mean, rightly or wrongly, I think it's more to control immigration, which we won't go on to that. But the
different podcast.
It's linked to dependence that overseas students can bring in, which you'll probably know about because of what you're in. But the fact of the matter is that university's right for a number of kids. But we set kids up to fail by the current qualification system. Yeah. And what we should be doing is finding the kids' interest with the
and nurture it early.
Nurture early. Teachers pretty much know whether they're going to pass the GCSEs at source. Yep. So stop assessing
schools
on that.
The testing
the
that
data and everything.
Yeah.
So stop assessing. In fact, there's probably AI things now that can tell you what they're going to get.
Yeah.
I know there is. And what they need to do is stop labelling them kids as failure and actually set them up better from that age. And that's not the teachers to do. That's not an English teacher at a school in London's problem. It's a strategic thinking of the government to say, well, we're not going to keep assessing schools as we've been assessing them because it's outdated.
Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. We do align on certain thoughts on there as well. So it all sounds great, and obviously schools, and we're talking about, changing the systems, within the education system. They need, as you said, creative thinking. But people watching this are going to go, but like we've just said, schools don't have any money. Any teacher watching this right now will go, or head teacher will go, we have no money left in our budget. So how do we even pay for you to do what you're doing? And how do you even make money? People want to know because they're going to go, you're not going to be doing this for free. You've still got bills to pay. So how do you get, how does TILG get supported under the government at the moment with funding or anything? Because people would like to know that.
Yeah, so a couple of different ways. So first and foremost, we have partners and we get organisations that share our beliefs and they support the challenge heavily. We're indebted to NatWest, their products, Airbus this year, who really, and Fort Park actually. So who've all supported our programme. And we continue to grow that. There's people seeing what we're doing, seeing the good work. Yes, we have to charge the schools an entry fee for the challenge.
We're going to just jump on that point, though. But it is interesting because a lot of people will look at these big businesses, especially NatWest, because obviously back in the financial crash, that ruined a lot of people as well. And they'll think, why? But a lot of these big businesses do good for community-based work.
NatWest are incredible, and all of our partners do stuff. NatWest, the stuff that they are putting into education and their commitment to it, and the team there, and how much they care. That's the stuff that people don't see sometimes. And we're lucky.
It's not interesting in the newspapers.
Of course it's not. But we see it, and we see the fact that they're doing series upon series of pitching masterclasses on our platform to help students work for free. They're supporting the challenge, supporting the event that we put in with Birmingham at the ICC, which is the finals this year. So the organisation's doing loads, but they also see the future talents. That I think companies have actually cottoned on to this change that's needed before anybody else. Yeah. And you've seen organisations, I think PwC was one of the latest that dropped the entry requirements for their grad roles. Yeah, so companies are seeing it, and they're seeing it a lot earlier now.
They're like football clubs. Yeah. They've got to realise they've got to get in early to get the talent.
Of course.
And then nurture it through.
So I'd say we're still at the early adopting stage, but I think companies are really now deciding that they need to do something about it. And we are having conversations pretty much daily with big employers, and they're saying, can we use you as a vehicle to get out to these students? And it's music to our ears because I'd love the challenge to be free for every school. Yeah. I can't do that because we've got to pay the bills, but our challenge stands up against anybody in the country. So from a price point, and I think we are the best at what we do. So
okay, perfect. So if a school wants to get in contact with you, Where do they contact you at the moment?
Just through the website, the Inspirational Learning Group.co.uk.
We'll put a link on it
Yeah,
as well.
I hope that's right. We've just had it redone.
So do I. If it's not, it'll be edited. Obviously we've gone through a lot and a lot of the questions here, because I think when we get into education, it's very difficult to pick holes, which I would love to do, from that. But I think what we're saying at the moment is very much government have got to get more involved. Like you say, there's too many, I was going to say housing ministers because it's similar there, but there's too many education ministers that have been coming in. Nothing gets
Just
done.
needs a plan. Even if it was for a term in the next...
There's more just firefighting.
Yeah, the
rather
next
than dealing
government, if we could just have a stable minister throughout the term of government, then naturally that would be a starting point. Whoever gets in, it's not going to go away. Kids are going to need skills. Kids are going to need qualifications.
Absolutely.
This is going to stay, and hopefully education will remain free like the NHS and everything else. We never get into that kind of realm. And we should be proud of it, but we can get so much more. And that's, as I said, reiterate, this isn't the teacher. This is nothing against teachers.
Yep.
This is saying that they need the support from businesses, from government to actually say, we can do more and we can better equip these students. And hopefully in 20 years' time, we could be sat here going, well, look at our education system now.
Yeah.
Look at where it was already gold standard.
But now it's diamond.
And you look at it, and any business owner or anybody with that kind of force should always want that. You should never accept where we are today.
Yeah.
You should be, I always say, we're the best we've ever been, but the worst we'll ever be again.
Yeah.
And that if you have that mantra, you're always going to keep moving forward.
That's a good saying. I think you'll find a few people will be copying that one all together. So what's next for you then? Because there's going to be so much you can do, and obviously the way you've grown the company. But what's next for you? What's next for TILG? Obviously this timeline obviously hasn't ended here. It's obviously got to do another loop around. So where could we see you in the next 5-10 years?
Ultimate aim, I'd love government to look at what we're doing and say this is brilliant. It's a bit like an NCS, how they've got their gold charter, standard charter.
Yeah.
Why couldn't our program, and I'm not saying in the current guise, it could be a resource, it could be anything, but our program could be the right for every year 7 students.
Yeah.
They come up to high school, they can take part in the National Careers Challenge, because it'll give them a real good ground at the beginning of
because if
education.
schools could adopt yours within their educational program, your philosophy and your ideas of doing this.
We've got all the testing. We've been going through. We've passed the longevity test. It's a tough industry. I wouldn't be in this if it was about money.
Yeah.
There'll never be in it for money. And people do say it sometimes, but we want to make a difference, and we have. So in terms of that, would be my ultimate aim. Could we get some government support? We never really had any, and I'm not saying we deserve it. I'm just saying that other than do the UniConnect program, that would be nice. But then there's so much to do internationally as well.
Yeah,
this is a concept that we take worldwide. We've proven it in China. We wanted to take it to the likes of India and everywhere else, and ultimately, can we become a global challenge that kids take part in? But and going back to the original roots, kid from Stoke competing against kids in India and making that level playing field, which the world is now.
Yeah.
With remote working and everything else, won't get onto that.
Might do a part 2.
Yeah, but it's the opportunities are there. So actually, you can broaden your horizons, and if we can do that, and for me, it's legacy. Me and Mike both feel passionately about this.
Yeah. That
it's something that at the end of your days, you look and you go, wow, there are millions of kids we supported through this program. So we never, the level it's at now, we'd have never dreamt to get here. So, the next 10 years excites me just as much.
Fantastic. So we're going to see TILG completely global, really hopeful. Government sort of
backed,
sealed that stamp on it and pushing forward.
Yeah, and helping more kids.
Fantastic. Ben, thank you for coming on to The Real and Raw. Pleasure. I'm actually really inspired about it. If you want to know more, obviously from Ben, Education Supremo, should we say now? Getting there. From there. But look, obviously absolutely fantastic. If you're a teacher, you're a head teacher, you're in a school thinking, how do we get on here? The links are going to be coming up across the bottom of the screen now to get in touch with Ben, get your kids on it. Let's get them inspired. Let's show the UK is really great for everybody. Thank you. I'm James Forrester, and thank you for Zen for hosting us in this beautiful venue. But we're going to go now because it is boiling.
Yep.
We need to go and have a drink.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.